EVs are all the rage these days, and EVs like this, well, they're actually really nice cars. But today in 2024, public charging is still somewhat of an issue. And if you're like me, well, I personally still have the cravings for the good old dinosaur juice, like these cars over here. But let's face it, EVs are more likely than not the way of the future. The question is when, not if or how. And if you're someone who likes to prepare for the future, well, you've got to start looking into electrification right now. So what can you do? Well, Mercedes-Benz thinks that they have the answer for you, and it's that car right there in the delivery bay. This is the new Mercedes-Benz C350e, the new range topper in the regular C-Class lineup here in Malaysia. And yup, it is a plug-in hybrid. And here's the kicker, it's not just an addition to the range, because the C350e is actually replacing the ever-popular C300 in the lineup. It's even made right here in Malaysia, so they're clearly confident. The question then is, was that a brilliant decision or an expensive miscalculation? No matter what though, it's definitely not gonna stand out by its looks, because if you've already seen the C300, you've also pretty much already seen the C350e. It is almost completely identical on the outside, with the same slick design and the same AMG line body kit that includes that front grille over there with over 240 individual 3-pointed stars on top, just in case you're worried that other people won't know what you're driving. If you look close enough though, there are a couple of differences that are unique to the C350e. The most obvious one is right here on the rear 3/4 panel, because there are now two flaps, one on this side to refuel the car and another on the other side to recharge. Now you might think it is a bit weird having it on both sides of the car, but I think this is already a much better look than the previous weird square cutout on the bumper of the previous C350e. That just felt like a complete afterthought. Now, most of the chrome accents on here have also been swapped out for black colour, presumably to give this car an extra dash of sportiness. And that's also probably why they went with this 5-spoke design on the wheels, which are 1 inch smaller than before at 18 inches. But if you ask me, I think this is the right size for a car like this. I just kinda prefer the older design. Now the biggest design change on this car is actually right up in front, because this here now finally gets the state-of-the-art digital light matrix headlight system. Now without getting into too much details, this here basically uses a lot of tiny mirrors to split the light up to more than 2 million individual pixels. Now in case you're not aware, that is more pixels than some of the screens that you're even using to watch this very video. In practice though, this means that you can light up the road signs and the road ahead of you without dazzling oncoming traffic. And because of its high resolution, it can even highlight pedestrians or other dangers on the road. Now this here is definitely one of the coolest headlight technology that I've seen on a car, and the best part is it's actually useful and not just a gimmick. Just make sure you have your insurance to claim when you need to replace one of these. No matter what, one thing that will never change are the fake decorative exhaust tips. I mean, come on Mercedes, really? It's also really the same on the inside, because everything that you see here is just like the C300. The same layout, the same MBUX screens, and the same fancy air vents with the built-in ambient lighting system. That is not exactly a bad thing though, because I think this is still a very attractive looking cabin. I also appreciate the fact that they've kept this unique pattern on the dashboard, because they've really embraced the whole fake carbon fiber look, instead of trying to make it look like real carbon fiber, but we already know that it's fake. What I don't quite appreciate though is that since it's essentially the same car on the inside as any other C-Class, it's also inherited some of its weird quirks and design oversights. For example, I like to sit really low down in the car when I'm driving, but because this screen over here is fixed, in my usual driving position and steering wheel position, most of the top part of the screen is actually blocked off by the steering wheel. And also, the date pedal in the footwell is very small, only about the width of half of my foot. And when you pair it to the weirdly big hump in the center transmission tunnel, it is actually quite cramped down there in the footwell, and it's not comfortable when you're driving long distance journeys. The biggest flaw for me inside this cabin here though is that everything is now touch controlled. You have the aircon controls here on the screen, which fine, you might get used to it after a while. But this steering wheel controls for the volume is completely inexcusable because you'll never get any fine controls by swiping around. I mean, really, what's wrong with some buttons? Speaking of buttons, there are a few tiny changes on here to accommodate its PHEV powertrain, including the extra touch-sensitive buttons on the center console and some different designs on its displays. But really, they're so small that if you blink, you'll really miss it. One thing that you definitely won't miss is the fact that this boot here is now 100 litres smaller than the C300. And because the battery is right underneath over here, the boot floor has also been raised all the way up to just about flush with the boot lid, which means you don't get any underfloor storage, which also means that even your tyre repair kit is now in a little bag that you just have to chuck inside your main storage compartment. At least you can always fold down the rear seats for more space, and on the C350e, there are these handy dandy toggle switches right in the boot compartment that makes it super convenient to do just that. So, same looks and the same interior, but what's definitely not the same is the way that it drives. In fact, it drives so differently, I think it might even deserve its own different name. Because while technically it is a plug-in hybrid, for the most part, it actually behaves more like an EV in your normal day-to-day driving. And that is down to two things. One is the electric range, and number two is the fact that you can now drive this car up to 140 km per hour in pure electric mode. That's all courtesy to the 25.4 kWh battery pack, which is, get this, 4 times more than what its predecessor has. On paper, Mercedes says that it will be enough for over 100 km of fully electric range. In my day-to-day driving though, I've been consistently hitting 80 plus kilometers each charge, unless I really do run the battery down all the way to 0%. But still, compared to plug-in hybrids from before, it's already a massive improvement. The fact that it behaves so much like an EV also means that you get a lot of the benefits that you get from driving an EV. There's basically zero vibrations in here, and it's actually also really quiet. It's just so serene and calm, and that is especially nice when you're coming home after a long day of work. And because it's also driven by an electric motor, you also get that instant torque acceleration that all of the EV devotees love to shout about. The electric motor itself put out 129 horsepower and 440 Nm of torque, and that is already enough to give you that kick in the back feeling when you lay on the accelerator. I mean, look, that is already fast enough. But since this is a hybrid, the real magic happens when the engine also joins the party. On the dinosaur juice front, the C350e is powered by a 2-litre turbocharged inline-4 engine, which makes 204 horsepower and 320 Nm of torque. Together with the electric motor, total output goes up to 313 horsepower and 550 Nm of torque, with all of that sent to the rear wheels via a 9-speed automatic gearbox. 0 to 100 km per hour on here isn't faster on paper at 6.1 seconds. But it really is a different sensation to the way that it accelerates, with a very powerful, very potent early acceleration that really just makes it feel a lot more nimble when you're going around urban areas or when you're overtaking a car. But aside from power, the most interesting thing about this whole hybrid system is the way that the car adapts to the different driving modes that you're in. For example, these pedal shifters behind the steering wheel, now in your electric and hybrid mode, this functions as a control for your regen settings, but once you put it into sports mode, they turn into your good old gear shift pedals. And the throttle pedal on this car is also very interesting because in electric mode, there's actually an additional physical resistance barrier to let you know that when you click past that level on the throttle pedal, you'll turn the car into hybrid mode and wake up that engine. Now you may think that all of this will make driving this car feel very confusing, but it's actually been really intuitive. And the fact that the car adapts to you instead of the other way around really just makes you feel a lot better as a driver as opposed to some EVs out there. With all that being said, there is one thing that has gotten worse on this car with the switch to hybrid power, and that is the brake pedals. Because with the addition of the brake blending for the regen braking, the brake pedal feel has somehow gotten a lot more vague. almost like you're stepping on nothing at all. So it might be a bit hard to gauge how hard you need to press on the pedal to slow down smoothly, especially when you're coming to a complete stop. With the additional electric drive components and an extra battery, the weight has also increased by quite a bit. 429 kilograms heavier to be specific. But does it make any difference to the way that it drives? Actually, not really. I mean, you definitely feel the extra weight, especially with the air suspensions at the back that gives you that slight nodding feeling when you're coming to a standstill. But aside from that, in terms of handling, I don't think that extra weight has really taken away much in terms of its dynamic qualities. The C350e, like all other C classes out there, is still a very Mercedes-Benz feeling car to drive. It's not the most outright sportiest model in the segment, but it's still competent enough with a sharp front end and a decent body control that you'll definitely appreciate when it comes to the odd back roads. And these seats here, they're actually really supportive. It's never gonna beat the 3 Series when it comes to driving feel, but honestly, with this powertrain, I don't think that's something that you're really thinking about when you're driving this car. You just want to chill and cruise around, and I think that can be just as enjoyable. Now, it's a hybrid, so we have to talk about its fuel consumption. And given that it's driving in EV mode most of the time, you can really imagine just how impressive that number will be. Now, I've driven over 340 km so far over the weekend, and I've only used less than a quarter of a tank of petrol. That is a fuel consumption figure of less than 3 liters per 100 km, and I think I can get it even lower if I charge this car more regularly. Now, because I don't have a wall box at home, I've only been topping off the battery if there's a charger wherever I'm going. But even then, I'm really impressed at how much this car lets me drive in full electric mode. And it's only cost me less than 50 ringgit in total charging costs. But if you do have a wall box at home, not only do you save more money on charging, you can also have a full battery every single morning. And if your daily commute is less than 80 kilometers, you can actually drive it around like it's an EV. And when you do need to charge outside, the 11 kilowatts onboard AC charger really makes it a lot more convenient and a lot more painless to be charging outside, because it only takes 2 hours for a full charge. And that is pretty much perfect for your lunch stop or a quick grocery run. It will definitely be more EV if we also get that 50 kilowatts DC fast charging support like it does in Thailand. But to be honest, I don't think I've run into a situation yet where I need that fast charging, because the 11 kilowatts AC charger is already faster than even some EVs out there. And besides, I already have a full tank of petrol if I do need to go any further. The C350e really is the best of both worlds because it is EV enough to give you a glimpse into that lifestyle, but it's still not hampered by the lack of charging stations outside. And yeah, it is a bit more pricier than some of the EVs out there and even some from Mercedes themselves. But think of it as paying for convenience, the convenience of having a charger wherever you go. And besides, it's only a couple of thousands more than the C300 that it replaces. And if you ask me, I'd much rather have this over that car. Still don't know if an EV is for you? Why not give hybrids like the C350e a go? Because you might just find that the electrified lifestyle isn't all that terrifying as some people make it out to be. And hey, if charging is still an issue, the petrol engine will always have your back. Head on over to your nearest Cycle and Carriage Bintang showroom to try it out for yourselves. If you enjoyed the video, remember to click the like button and subscribe for more reviews like this one. And if you didn't, well, leave a comment below and tell me how I got it all wrong. And if you need more info, as always, log on to AutoBuzz.my.